Have you ever wondered how to actually get better at Call of Duty? Well, today I'm going to be giving you guys tips and tricks to do just that. You'll be walking away from this video with tips on how to win different engagements, raise your KD and score per minute, and of course, drop more of those nuke streaks. Hey guys, what is going on? It is your boy J King, and today I'm going to be giving you guys 5 tips and tricks to get better at Call of Duty. This can be used from anyone who just wants to play better, maybe raise your KD or score per minute, or of course dropping more of those nuke streaks as we love to do around here. Hopefully you'll be walking away from this video knowing how to improve, knowing what to take into each and every game to help you improve, and just help your overall performance in game. So before we get started, we currently have no shoutouts for this week. If you want to shout out yourself, all you have to do is head over to my stream at jking_official on Twitch, get 1,000 channel points before next week's video, and then redeem the channel point reward for shout out. You'll be on next week's video as well as your link down in the description. Also, if this video has helped you at all, consider leaving a like. Also, consider subscribing. We have reached the 100 subscriber mark, so I do appreciate each and every one of you who has subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that bell as well. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So hopping right into it, tip number 1 is going to be something called centering. You might not know what this is, but it's actually extremely important for having an advantage going into each and every gunfight that you're in. So basically what centering is, as you move around the map, you are going to be positioning your crosshair on the area where you believe enemies are going to be coming from. So an example of this would be maybe in Nuketown. You know how the door is in the front of the house. Basically, if you're going to be running into that door, you are going to be wanting to position your crosshair where the enemies are going to be. So maybe that's in the doorway, maybe that's sort of back behind the kitchen where those 2 entrances are in the back of the house. You don't want to be looking, number 1, at the ground, number 2, above the door or to the sides of it. What you're going to have to do, if someone is in front of you and you have not positioned your crosshair on where the enemy is going to be, you're going to have to move your crosshair to where the enemy is, and that is going to be valuable time that you are going to have not shooting the enemy. This is going to raise your reaction time. It's going to cause you to kill the enemy slower and give them more of an advantage in the gunfight. So instead, what you should be doing is centering wherever you go on where the enemy is going to be. Obviously, you're not going to be 100% perfect. Not every place on every map is just going to have one entrance. There might be multiple entrances, but if you're more often than not aiming where the enemy is actually going to be instead of where they are not, you are going to get your shots on the target quicker and therefore win more engagements. This is huge for raising your KD, staying alive on nuke streaks, and pretty much just being a better Call of Duty player overall. So if you want to practice this, I would recommend just hopping into a custom match on whatever map you are. You could throw bots on if you want. You could also do it with them off, and just work on running around the map and try centering on different areas. If you think there's going to be an area in some like window or something, try to center on that area as you're running up to it. This is something that's going to become more natural as you do it. Now, tip number 2 is actually going to be about sensitivity. You probably heard it before. Sensitivity is pretty important, and there really isn't a set sensitivity that you want to be using and that's objectively the best. It comes down to a lot of personal preference, but as you're finding the right sensitivity, you want to be finding the balance between accuracy and speed. If you're playing at an extremely low sensitivity and you're on controller, maybe it's like 3 or 4, which nowadays is pretty low, you're gonna have a hard time doing like 90-degree turns, snapping on the targets, different things like that. You may even have problems tracking people as they run across your screen, especially if they are really close to you. So having that really good accuracy at long range doesn't really matter. If you're not able to get onto those targets quickly, you're gonna have an extreme disadvantage in those gunfights. And on the same token, having an extremely high sensitivity is going to mean less accuracy on the actual target. That means when you're tracking them, you're not going to be tracking them very good. You might be going back and forth over the target and missing your shots, even though you are snapping onto those targets pretty quickly. So what you should do is try to find a sensitivity that is somewhere in the middle. You want to be snapping onto targets, being able to do 90-degree, 180 turns, but you also don't want to be missing a ton of shots, or really hardly any shots at all if you want to be playing at any sort of high level. So finding your sensitivity is pretty important. I do recommend just going into a custom game and, you know, maybe trying out different sensitivities. If you're on mouse and keyboard, try out, okay, maybe I want to have a higher hipfire sensitivity so I can move onto targets quicker, but then lower the ADS sensitivity so I'm having that accuracy when I'm ADS'd in. That's personally what I do. If you're on controller, you could still do something similar. There is ADS sensitivities on there. So yeah, just try to find a sensitivity that is somewhere in the middle, and you're going to be having that speed and accuracy easy, and you're not going to be putting yourself in that disadvantage in those gunfights. The third tip is going to be on positioning. So I could do an entire video on this, and I probably will be doing that in the future. But basically, positioning is pretty huge for staying alive and pretty much going on any sort of streaks, or even just winning individual engagements. Obviously, head glitches are pretty powerful in this game. There is a pretty decent headshot multiplier in this game, but in any sort of way, making yourself a smaller target for the enemy is going to put you at an advantage. If their entire body is showing and you're only showing for pretty much like the upper chest up, you are going to have an advantage. You're going to be hitting more of your shots on average more than they are. So trying to find those power positions on the map where there are maybe head glitches, or maybe there are stairs and you're standing sort of at the bottom of them, so you are just showing at the top, maybe even like your head. That's where the term head glitch actually comes from. So positioning yourself on the map, not getting caught out from cover. If you are caught out from cover, you are going to pretty much be at a disadvantage, especially if there's multiple people engaging you. There's also a technique called shouldering. If you watch pretty much any like pro match in Call of Duty, or even other games like CSGO or Valorant, you're gonna see pros pretty much go right into a corner, and then maybe like the edge of that corner is gonna be peeking out into a lane or something, and they're pretty much just gonna move back and forth very, very quickly from out of that corner and then back into the corner so they are covered. Basically what this is doing, they are trying to see where the enemies are without putting themselves out of cover. So if they see an enemy, they could quickly duck behind the corner again, and pretty much they've gained information on where the enemy is, and the enemy cannot do really anything about it. So this is pretty valuable even in pubs, even if you're really not playing as a team and you're solo queuing. This is important for gaining information on an area. Maybe you want to see if there's multiple enemies, maybe around a corner, maybe in a lane or something similar. And if you just blindly run around that corner, you might run into 2 or 3 people, and that's going to pretty much mean a death sentence for you. But if you shoulder that and you gain information before you push into it, you are going to potentially be able to back down from that area and then stay alive, and then try to pick off those one-on-one engagements from there. So shouldering is a really useful tactic even in pubs on gaining information where the enemy is. If you guys want more explanation on that, I could do a video on that in the future. So yeah, positioning is extremely important. Just try to play around cover, try to know where you are pushing, try to gain information on the enemies, and then position yourself accordingly. This is going to help you win more engagements, obviously raise that KD, and stay alive for those nuke streaks. So before we move on to 4 and 5, which I do think are pretty important tips, consider leaving a like. Also consider subscribing. Thank you once again for the 100 subscribers. It does mean a lot to me, and we are just getting started. I'm also a variety streamer over at Twitch, jking_official. I stream mainly Cold War and Clash Royale, as well as some other games like Valorant, Phasmophobia, and pretty much anything else. So if you guys want to stop by sometime, that would be amazing. So without further ado, let's get back into it. So getting back into it, tip number 4 is actually playing with your teammates. This might seem obvious, but it's actually something that is pretty easy to overlook, especially if you're solo queuing and you have teammates in pubs that just might not know what's going on at all. So playing with your teammates is actually extremely important for staying alive and winning engagements. If you could take any engagement in a 2-on-1 situation, you're pretty much guaranteed to trade that kill out. Maybe the enemy will take one of you down, but the other teammate should be able to trade that kill out. And obviously, if you're the one who wants to raise your KD or go on nuke streaks, you're going to be the one who wants to stay alive in that engagement. So being around your teammates, knowing where your teammates are, is pretty much a good thing to happen. It's especially going to cut down on the amount of times that you get double teamed or like caught out of position. If you go around a corner and there's 3 people there, you're probably going to die no matter how good you are. So in sticking with your teammates, even if you do run into those 3 people, you might have 3 people yourself, and you might have an even engagement. You might come out of it alive. You're going to have a much higher chance of surviving through that engagement. So how you do this is pretty much just watch the minimap, where your teammates are, what lanes are they watching. If someone's watching a lane, maybe you could go and help them and maybe like try to bait out, try to shoulder around the area, try to get some information. Then once you do get that information, you might cause the enemy to shoot, and then the teammate will try to peek them and try to get that kill. Again, I could do an entire video on this in the future if you guys want, but that's pretty much an overview on how to play with your teammates. This is going to help you stay alive in those engagements and help you go on those nuke streaks. Now, the 5th and final tip of this video is don't be overly aggressive. Again, this might seem pretty obvious, but as a submachine gun player, it is easy to get caught out and try to take on multiple people at the same time. I do it all the time, and it gets me killed so much. I cannot tell you the amount of nuke streaks that I have gone on and then died because I made some stupid play where I like solo pushed the hard point and 3 people were there. It pretty much just means that you are going to die. So obviously know when to push and when not to push. This is again going to be map specific. Again, watch the mini map. I do have an entire video on a mini map where I pretty much review one of my nuke streaks. I review how I'm reading the mini map, where I'm going on it. So if you guys want to check that out, I will leave a card and the link in the description. This also goes in tandem with playing with your teammates. If you are going to be pushing something, pushing with your teammates is probably going to be the best bet. Even if there are multiple people there, it's pretty much easier for you to win those engagements. So yeah, as a submachine gun player, know when to get into the enemy's face, know when to push certain lanes, but also don't be stupid about it and then get yourself killed because of it. If you guys want me to do more videos on how to read the mini map, let me know down in the comments below. So anyway, guys, that is it for this video. If you are seeing this, I do appreciate you. You are the GOAT, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Not this again. Your choices I ain't ripping in, your traps I ain't missing in. Better take your shots, you might run out of time to get them in. You really got me dead, now I'm wondering if I live again. Nothing was the same.